As long as Egypt maintained its military and political strength, Nebuchadnezzar's rule over Hatuland was not assured. The chance of an Egyptian invasion was a constant threat to Babylonian rule and a potential catalyst for both unrest and the possible formation of local treaties among the local kingdoms with an anti-Babylonian orientation. Nebuchadnezzar's goal was clear, and his attempt to follow the Assyrian king Esarhaddon and Ashurbanipal in their campaign to conquer Egypt was only a matter of time. He made preparatory expedition into Hatuland at an unknown date during the third year of his reign, between mid-April 602 and late March 601 BCE, at which time he collected heavy tribute which he may have needed in preparations for the forthcoming campaign. After 3 years, when Nebuchadnezzar based his rule in Hatuland and planned how to invade into Egypt, he probably felt that he is ready and planned this invasion to the winter of 601 BCE. In order to invade into Egypt, the Babylonians had to cross northern Sinai, and it was a real challenge. Roads should be prepared with stations of supply, food, and water for the army. All this had to be well planned, and a cooperation of the local Arab tribes was essential. Even more, the Babylonians had to surprise the Egyptian army in order to succeed, to deliver a strong and big enough army into Lower Egypt, and to be ready for face-to-face battle without giving the Egyptian army the time to be prepared. It was not what actually happened. According to the Babylonian Chronicle from the 4th year of Nebuchadnezzar, his plan didn't succeed. Let's read the chronicle from that year. The 4th year, the king of Akkad mustered his army and marched to Hatu. He marched about victoriously in Hatu. In the month of Kislev, he took his army's lead and marched to Egypt. We are talking about events that happened in November-December 601 BCE, exactly 3 years after the destruction of Ashkelon. Let's come back to the chronicle and check what was the result of the Babylonian attack over Egypt. Remember, in the month of Kislev, Nebuchadnezzar took his army's lead and marched to Egypt. When the king of Egypt heard the news, he mustered his army. They fought one another in the battlefield, and both sides suffered severe losses. Literally, they inflicted a major defeat upon one another. The king of Akkad and his army turned and went back to Babylon. It's clear that Nebuchadnezzar didn't succeed with his plan to conquer Egypt. It even seemed that only 4 years after his great victory over the Egyptians in a battle in the open field, Nebuchadnezzar's army suffered a great loss. The Babylonian Chronicle of the next year, from mid-March 600 to April 599, can support this assumption, since the only sentence we have about this year is, in the 5th year, the king of Akkad stayed in his own land and gathered together his chariots and horses in great numbers. The loss and damage to the Babylonian army in the attempt to conquer Egypt were probably great, and time was needed to recover. In my opinion, the most important sentence in the Babylonian Chronicle describing the events of November-December 601 BCE is, "When the king of Egypt heard the news, he mustered his army." If the king of Egypt heard about it, it means that someone was talking about it, and he had the time to gather his army and be ready for the Babylonian invasion. The advantage of surprise was lost, and the Egyptians were ready for the Babylonians. Who was responsible for it? We will come back to it very soon, and the answer will be clear. The Egyptian success showed that the military might had not been broken after the defeat at Carchemish 4 years previously, and that the Babylonian superiority was not so decisive as might have been presumed by the rapid takeover of all the territories of Chatuland. The Babylonian hold on the region was loosened, and Egypt could renew its influence on the region that had been under the exclusive control only 5 years earlier. This gives support to the testimony preserved by Herodotus, whereby the Egyptians obtained a new right of entry into Philistia, taking advantage of the opportunity that presented itself and conquered Gaza. This period of time seems to me to be the most appropriate for the title of Jeremiah's prophecy in chapter 47, verse 1. אשר היה דבר אדוני אל ירמיהו הנביא אל פלישתים, בטרם יכה פרעה את עזה. This event seems well anchored in the historical reality of the winter of 601-600 BCE. Support for this historical reconstruction may be found in the description of Jehoiakim's revolt against Babylon only 3 years after he was enslaved to Nebuchadnezzar. He became a Babylonian vassal in the months of Kislev, November-December 604 BCE, just after the destruction of Ashkelon. And as described in 2 Kings 24 verse 1, he was a royal vassal for exactly 3 years. ויהי לו יהויקים עבד 3 שנים, וישב וימרוד בו. Jehoiakim changed his mind and rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar exactly after 3 years in November-December 601 BCE, just after the great loss of the Babylonians in the battle in Egypt. It's hard to assume that a revolt of this nature would have been executed without the support and backing of the Egyptians. And although there is no information about the historical events that took place at this time, if the Egyptians were able to return to a position of any influence in the region, it is doubtful that Jehoiakim would have any choice other than ceasing the annual tribute to Babylon. The failed invasion to Egypt severely impaired Babylon's military power, which was forced to rebuild itself and rearm during the following year. It was only in the winter of the 6th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, between Kislev and Adar, December 599 and March 598 BCE, that he began to re-establish his control over Chatuland. In the Babylonian Chronicle, events from between December 599 and March 598 were described, and I will read it. The 6th year, in the month of Kislev, the king of Akkad mustered his army and marched to Chatu. He dispatched his army from Chatu, and they went off to the desert. They plundered extensively the possessions, animals, and gods of the numerous Arabs. In the month of Adar, the king went home. The attack on the desert tribes may point toward the elements that were guilty in the failure invasion to Egypt 2 years before. Can it be that these tribes were responsible for the fact that the Egyptians discovered the preparations for the Babylonian invasion and were attacked by Nebuchadnezzar in the first chance when he was ready to do so? This attack is also an evidence of a break in the continuity of Babylonian rule in the land of Israel, in a period of time when the area was subject to Egyptian influence, perhaps even real Egyptian rule. Additional evidence of this is the fact that the Babylonian Chronicle emphasizes that only Nebuchadnezzar returned to Babylon at the end of his campaign in the month of Adar. Large part of the Babylonian army apparently remained in Syria to continue to fortify its foothold in the region. All of these preparatory actions led to the situation whereby, during the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar's rule, between late March 598 and mid-April 597 BCE, the Babylonians managed to establish a stable government up to the border of Egypt. According to the second book of Kings, chapter 24, verse 7, ולא הוסיף עוד מלך מצרים לצאת מארצו, כי לקח מלך בבל מנחל מצרים עד נהר פרת, כל אשר הייתה למלך מצרים.